What if you died, but didn't realize it? Not minutes later. Not even 30 seconds later. What if your brain kept showing you a world, even after your heart had already stopped? It sounds impossible, because the moment your heart stops, most of us imagine everything instantly goes black. Game over. But what if that's not what actually happens? What if the final minute of your life is far stranger than anyone ever imagined? For decades, doctors believed death was almost immediate. But today, scientists are discovering something that has completely challenged that idea. People who were clinically dead and somehow came back have described things they should never have been able to experience. So, what really happens during the first 60 seconds after you die? Because what science is beginning to uncover might completely change the way you think about your final moments. This isn't a question that only modern scientists have asked. Tens of thousands of years ago, long before hospitals, heart monitors, or even written language existed, our earliest ancestors stood beside the people they loved asking the exact same question. What happens after we die? They had no machines to measure brain activity, no doctors to explain what they were seeing. All they had was mystery. Some buried their dead with tools, food, flowers, and personal belongings, suggesting they believed death wasn't simply the end. Whether they were right or wrong, we may never know. But one thing has never changed. From the first humans to us sitting here today, death remains the greatest mystery we've ever faced. The difference is that today, for the first time in history, science can actually watch what happens as life slips away. And what researchers have discovered during those first moments has surprised even the scientists studying it. Imagine your heart beats one final time. Then nothing. No dramatic warning. No slow-motion movie scene. Just one heartbeat, followed by complete silence. At that exact second, nearly 5 liters of blood stop moving through your body. The oxygen that every organ depends on is no longer being delivered. From the outside, it looks like everything is over. But inside your head, something remarkable is still unfolding. Because for a few brief seconds, your brain doesn't immediately realize what's happened. Your neurons continue firing. Your last thoughts may still be there. Your last emotions haven't vanished. In a strange way, you're still you. But that window is closing faster than you could ever imagine. Wait, if the brain doesn't know you're dead yet, what happens next? Around 10 seconds later, everything begins to change. Your brain is an incredible machine, making up only about 2% of your body weight. Yet it consumes nearly 20% of all the oxygen you breathe. It's constantly hungry for energy. The moment your heart stops, that supply is cut off. At first, your brain tries to keep going, using the tiny amount of oxygen that's still left. But it can't do that for long. One by one, the regions responsible for conscious thought begin shutting down. This is usually the moment you lose consciousness. Your eyes are still there, but they're no longer truly seeing. Your ears can still receive sound waves, but your brain is no longer processing them the way it did just moments ago. From the outside, everyone believes the story has ended. But inside your skull, another story may just be beginning. For years, scientists believed this was simply the point where the brain slowly faded into silence, almost like a phone running out of battery. The expectation was simple. Less oxygen meant less activity, until eventually there was none at all. It seemed logical. But science has a habit of surprising us when we least expect it. Because when researchers finally had the opportunity to monitor the brains of dying patients in real time, they didn't witness a quiet shutdown. They witnessed something that completely challenged decades of assumptions. In 2023, neuroscientist Dr. Jima Borjajan and her team at the University of Michigan studied the brain activity of patients who were being taken off life support. They expected to see brain signals gradually disappear. Instead, in some patients, the opposite happened. Seconds after the heart stopped delivering oxygen, parts of the brain suddenly became intensely active. Not random electrical noise, but organized bursts of gamma waves, the same type of brain activity often linked to consciousness, memory, attention, and vivid experiences. Even the researchers were stunned. Dr. Borjajan later described the surge as crazy high, because it was unlike anything they expected to find at the edge of death. But before we jump to conclusions, it's important to understand what this doesn't mean. Scientists are not saying they've discovered proof of an afterlife. They haven't. What they discovered is something equally fascinating. The dying brain may remain far more active for a brief period than anyone previously realized. Why it happens, and what those final moments actually feel like, remains one of the biggest unanswered questions in neuroscience. And that's when things get even stranger. Because if your brain is still active for a few moments, what is it actually doing? Is it just sending out random signals before everything shuts down? Or is something else happening? Believe it or not, the people who came back after being declared clinically dead might have some clues. For years, Doctors have collected thousands of stories from people who were brought back to life. Different countries, different cultures, different beliefs. But what's surprising is how many of their stories sound almost the same. Many people say they felt completely calm, even though their heart had stopped. Some said they were floating above their own body, watching doctors trying to save them. Others talked about moving through darkness toward a bright light. Nobody knows exactly why these experiences happen. Maybe it's the brain's final response. Maybe it's something we still don't understand. But whatever the answer is, the similarities are hard to ignore. Then there's something even more surprising, something people call a life review. You've probably heard someone say, "My whole life flashed before my eyes." Most of us think that means seeing the biggest moments of our lives. Your graduation, your wedding, your biggest success. But that's not what many survivors describe. Instead, they remember the small moments. The ordinary ones. Riding your bike as a kid. Eating dinner with your family. Walking home from school. Hearing someone laugh. Even a normal Tuesday afternoon that didn't seem important at the time. It's almost like your brain isn't picking your favorite memories. It's opening every page of your life at once. One story is especially interesting. A man who survived after his heart stopped said he suddenly remembered seeing a white cat sitting on the stairs of an apartment building. The memory felt real, but it made no sense to him. He couldn't remember ever being there. Here's something most people don't know. Even though your heart has stopped, it doesn't always mean it's too late. Doctors call this a critical window. If someone starts CPR right away, if a defibrillator is used quickly, there's still a chance to bring you back. In fact, your brain can survive for several minutes without fresh oxygen before permanent damage becomes much more likely. That's why every second matters. A delay of just 1 minute can make a huge difference. So while death may feel instant, your body is still fighting for life. Researchers like Dr. Sam Paanthonic, who has spent years studying cardiac arrest survivors, have found that some people remember things that happened while doctors believe they had no awareness at all. Some remembered voices. Others remembered sounds in the room. A few even described events that were later confirmed by medical staff. These reports don't prove what happens after death, but they do remind us that there is still so much about the human brain we don't fully understand. Every new study gives us another small piece of the puzzle, but the full picture is still missing. Then, after several minutes without oxygen, the body reaches a point where it can no longer recover on its own. Cells begin breaking down. Tiny structures inside them start falling apart. This is the beginning of a natural process that eventually happens to every living thing. It's the point where biology takes over. But by then, the biggest mystery may have already happened, inside the brain, during those first few moments after the heart stopped beating. And maybe that's the part that makes this story so fascinating. For thousands of years, humans have looked up at the sky, buried the people they loved, and wondered what happens after death. Today, science has answered some of those questions. But not all of them. We know what happens to the heart. We know what happens to the body. We're beginning to understand what happens inside the brain. But whether those final experiences are simply the brain's last activity, or something beyond our current understanding, no one can honestly say. Maybe the biggest lesson isn't about death at all. Maybe it's about life. Because the people who survive these experiences rarely come back talking about money, fame, or success. They talk about time. Time with family. Time with friends. The simple moments they once thought didn't matter. A quiet dinner. A walk outside. A random conversation. It's strange to think that the ordinary moments we barely notice today might one day become the memories that matter most. So maybe the real question isn't just, what happens after we die? Maybe it's, what are we doing with the time we have right now? Because one day, your heart will beat for the last time. None of us knows when that day will come. Before we continue, if you enjoy videos that make you question what you thought you knew, subscribe. Because every week we explore another mystery hiding in plain sight.